Hi, girls. I miss you guys very much. And I decided to make a recording of me reading the story. I'm starting on page 65, right where we left off, or a little bit after where we left off, a little bit before, line 338. Okay, this is right after the servants decided to leave, and Hannah and Sadao are left at home alone with the children. I'm going to read and you can follow along as I read, and then I will stop every once in a while to show you to talk about what we're reading. Okay? She made the breakfast and Sadao helped with the children. Neither of them spoke of the servants beyond the fact that they were gone. But after Hannah had taken morning food to the prisoner, she came back to Sadao. "Why is it we cannot see clearly what we ought to do?" she asked him. "Even the servants see more clearly than we do. Why are we different from other Japanese?" Sadao did not answer, but a little later he went into the room where the prisoner was and said brusquely, I'm going to stop. We talked in class why are they different than the other servants? And we discussed two things. We said that first of all, they lived in America and they came in contact with Americans and they realized that they're human beings and that they're similar to them. For the servants, they never saw an American. For them, they're just the enemy. But when we come face to face with someone and we get to know them and we see that they're a human being, that they love, that they hate, that they're cold, that they're hot, we realize that they're just like us. Another reason that we discussed that they're different than the servants is that they're educated, and often educated people realize that they have less superstitions, they understand a little bit more how the world works, and that more about things that are not just in their own personal circle. And so Sadao then goes into the room where the prisoner was, and he's angry. He's angry at the prisoner that he's disrupting his life and his household, and that Hannah's upset, and that the servants left. So he's very angry at him, and he says to him, line 344, "Today you may get up upon your feet. I want you to stay up only 5 minutes at a time. Tomorrow you may try it twice as long. It would be well that you get your strength as quickly as possible." He saw the flicker of terror on the young face that was still very pale. "Okay," the boy murmured. Evidently he was determined to say more. "I feel I ought to thank you, doctor, for having saved my life." Okay, so again, why do we think that Tom says this? He says this because he does feel very thankful to Sadao, and also he's scared that something is happening now, and he doesn't want Sadao to give him up to someone. He'd give him over to the police, and he wants to try to make a human connection with Sadao. "Don't thank me too early," Sadao said coldly. He saw the flicker of terror again in the boy's eyes, terror as unmistakable as an animal's. The scars on his neck were crimson red for a moment. Those scars, what were they? Sadao did not ask. So again, Sadao can't help but see this boy, as someone who was hurt, someone who's scared, as a human being. And when he looks at the scars, he thinks about how maybe this boy was tortured when he was a prisoner of war. So even though he doesn't want to, he continues to see him as a human being. In the afternoon, the second thing happened. Hannah, working hard on unaccustomed labor, saw a messenger come to the door in official uniform. Her hands went weak and she could not draw her breath. The servants must have told already. She ran to Sadao, gasping, unable to utter a word. But by then the messenger had simply followed her through the garden, and there he stood. She pointed at him helplessly. Sadao looked up from his book. He was in his office, the outer partition of which was thrown open to the garden for the southern sun. "What is it?" he asked the messenger, and then he rose, seeing the man's uniform. "You are to come to the palace," the man said. "The old general is in pain again." "Oh!" Hannah breathed. "Is that all?" "All?" the messenger exclaimed. "Is it not enough?" "Indeed it is," she replied. "I am very sorry." When Sadao came to say goodbye, she was in the kitchen, but doing nothing. The children were asleep, and she sat merely resting for a moment, the more exhausted from her fright than from work. "I thought they had come to arrest you," she said. He gazed down into her anxious eyes. "I must get rid of this man for your sake," he said in distress. "Somehow I must get rid of him." So Hannah gets very worried when when the messenger comes. She thinks that the servants have told on them, and that the messenger came to arrest Sadao. But it turns out that the messenger just came to call Sadao to go to the general, because, as we remember from the first part of the story, Sadao is the general's personal doctor, and the general's not feeling well, and he needs Sadao to come look at him. And when Sadao leaves the house, he's very, very upset. He's very distressed because of how much this prisoner has ruined his household. The servants left. His wife is terrified, and he feels like he has to do something to get rid of him. So let's see what he's going to do. Okay, so now we're in the conversation. We're in the middle of a conversation, line 369, between Sadao and the general. Okay, we're coming now in the middle where Sadao has already told the general about what happened, about the prisoner and what's going on with him. And now the general is responding to what Sadao has already told him. "Of course," the general said weakly, "I understand fully, but that is because I once took a degree in Princeton. So few Japanese have." "I care nothing for the man, Excellency," Sadao said, "but having operated on him with such success—" "Yes, yes," the general said, "it only makes me feel you more indispensable to me. Evidently you can save anyone. You are so skilled. You say you think I can stand one more such attack as I have had today?" "Not more than one," Sadao said. "Then certainly I can allow nothing to happen to you," the general said with anxiety. His long, pale Japanese face became expressionless, which meant that he was deep in thought. "You cannot be arrested," the general said, closing his eyes. "Suppose you were condemned to death, and the next day I had to have my operation." "There are other surgeons, Excellency," Sadao suggested. "None I trust," the general replied. "The best ones have been trained by Germans, and would consider the operation successful even if I died. I do not care for their point of view." Okay, so the general says to Sadao, "I understand how you feel because I've also lived in America and I studied there and I came in contact with them. But other Japanese wouldn't understand. But I can't have anything happen to you. Not because I think that what you're doing is okay, not because you're a friend or an important doctor, because I need you." So we see that the general is very selfish. He needs Sadao, so he doesn't want anything to happen to him. And Sadao, trying to be modest, says to him, "Well, there are other doctors." And the general says, "I don't trust them because they were trained not in America but in Germany. So if they think that even if I die, that the operation is a success, as long as they do everything that they were supposed to do. But I see that you are such an amazing doctor that this man who was practically dead, you were able to save. So I need you." Okay. Now we're at the very end of line 383. "It seems a pity that we cannot better combine the German ruthlessness with the American sentimentality. Then you could turn your prisoner over to execution, and yet I could be sure you would not murder me while I was unconscious." The general laughed. He had an unusual sense of humor. "As a Japanese, could you not combine these two foreign elements?" he asked. So he says to Sadao, maybe you can combine this American sentimentality, this feeling of that every life is so important, and the feeling of having to save my life, together with the German ruthlessness, the German achzariyut of being able to turn over the prisoner. And Sadao smiled. Line 388. "I am not quite sure," he said, "but for your sake I would be willing to try, Excellency." The general shook his head. "I had rather not be the test case," he said. He felt suddenly weak and overwhelmed with the cares of his life as an official in times such as these, when repeated victory brought great responsibilities all over the South Pacific. It is very unfortunate that this man should have washed up on your doorstep, he said irritably. Right? So for the general, this is all too much for him. Why does he have to deal with this? Too much responsibility. It's unfortunate. The chaval, it's a pity that this man had to show up at your doorstep because it causes problems for me, the general. He's not worrying about Sadao. He's selfish. I feel it so myself, Sadao said gently. It would be best if he could be quietly killed, the general said. Not by you, but by someone who does not know him. I have my own private assassins. Suppose I send two of them to your house tonight, or better, any night. You need know nothing about it. It is now warm. What would be more natural than that you should leave the outer partition of the white man's room open to the garden while he sleeps? So the general says, you know what? What if this man is killed, but nobody knows about it, and you don't have anything to do with it? I have my own private assassins, okay? People that kill for money, right? Not something private just for the general. He can use them whenever he wants. Nobody cares. Nobody knows about it. So I'll just send them one night. You leave open the mechitza to the outside, and he'll come in. They'll come in. They'll kill him, and you won't have to worry about it. Certainly, it would be very natural, Sadao agreed, to leave open the window. In fact, it is so left open every night. Good, the general said, yawning. They are very capable assassins. They make no noise and they know the trick of inward bleeding. If you like, I can even have them remove the body. Sadao considered. That perhaps would be best, Excellency. He agreed, thinking of Hannah. So why does Sadao agree to this? Because this prisoner has just been too much of an issue, and now someone else is going to take care of it. So Sadao agrees to have for the general to send assassins.